first time humanity walked into the Galactic Council chambers, we all thought the same thing. This was going to be hilarious. I mean, look at them. They were tiny, soft, no natural weapons, no scales, no exoskeleton, no venom sacs. Their planet was a death trap of diseases, predators, and weather that could kill you 17 different ways before breakfast. And somehow these fragile little mammals had survived. The betting pools opened immediately. Most gave them 3 cycles before they begged for protectorate status under one of the major powers. I put 50 credits on 2 cycles, because I'm an optimist. My name is Varak, and I'm a trade negotiator for the Corthan Dominion. We're the second largest empire in this arm of the galaxy, right behind the Wythran Collective, and we've been playing the expansion game for about 4,000 standard years. We're good at it. Really good. Our ships are faster, our weapons hit harder, and our diplomats could sell water to an Aquarian. When the humans showed up with their little delegation asking for trade agreements and mutual defense pacts, we practically licked our lips. The delegation leader was named Victoria Cross. Yes, I checked the translation 3 times. Apparently, it was a real name, not a statement of intent. Though, in retrospect, maybe we should have paid more attention to that detail. She was tall for a human, with dark skin, short-cropped hair, and eyes that seemed to catalog everything in the room with disturbing efficiency. She wore a simple black suit, no weapons visible, and she smiled like someone who knew a joke nobody else had heard yet. The first negotiation session was scheduled in one of the neutral meeting halls on Station Kepler, a massive trading hub that orbited a convenient midpoint between human space and, well, everyone else's space. The hall itself was designed to be intimidating, all soaring ceilings and floating platforms with holographic displays that could show fleet positions, trade routes, and casualty estimates with equal clarity. Very civilized, very professional, very much designed to make newcomers understand exactly how small they were. 12 species sent representatives: the Corthan Dominion, the Ethran Collective, the Moraliki Confederacy, the Helian Assembly. 8 others, each with their own agendas, their own territorial claims, and their own ideas about how to carve up this new species between them. The humans got 1 table. We got the other 11. Fair is fair. Victoria Cross walked in exactly on time, followed by 3 other humans. One was a massive male who looked like he could bend steel with his bare hands, not that it would help against a plasma cutter. One was a slender woman with silver hair and glasses that probably contained more processing power than our ship computers. The third was unremarkable, average height, average build, the kind of person you'd forget 3 seconds after meeting them. That should have been our second warning sign. "Good morning," Victoria said, her voice clear and pleasant. "Thank you all for agreeing to meet with us. We're honored to begin formal relations with the Galactic Council." Honored. Right. The Ythran representative, a being named Quillax, who had more tentacles than I had patience, slithered forward slightly. "Let us dispense with pleasantries, human Victoria Cross. Your species has entered a complex political ecosystem. There are rules, territories, established trade networks. You cannot simply appear and expect equal treatment." "Of course not," Victoria agreed, still smiling. "We're complete newcomers. We understand that. We're hoping to learn from those more experienced than ourselves." The Moralaki delegate, Broken Claw, clicked his mandibles in what might have been amusement. The Moralaki were insectoids, about twice human size, with exoskeletons that could shrug off small arms fire, and a cultural appreciation for direct violence that made them excellent enforcers. "Learning can be expensive," Broken Claw said. Perhaps humanity requires protection, guidance. The Muralaki Confederacy would be willing to extend such services for a reasonable price. How generous, Victoria said, and I swear her smile got wider. What kind of price are we talking about? And so it began. For the next 6 hours, we carved. We negotiated. We made offers and counter-offers. Mining rights to asteroid belts in human systems. Exclusive trade agreements that would route all human commerce through our preferred channels. Basing rights for our military vessels. Technology sharing agreements that were hilariously one-sided. Defense pacts that essentially turned humanity into a client state. Every standard trick in the book, polished to a mirror shine. And Victoria Cross just kept smiling. She'd nod thoughtfully. Ask clarifying questions. Request additional time to consider particularly complex proposals. She never said no outright. She never raised her voice. She just kept taking notes, occasionally conferring with her colleagues in whispered English, and agreeing to reconvene for another session. After the first week, some of the delegates started getting impatient. The Helian representative, a crystalline being who communicated through light pulses, suggested perhaps the humans were stalling because they didn't understand their position. Quilex proposed a demonstration, perhaps a small show of force near human space, just to clarify the reality of the situation. Victoria heard them out. Then she asked if we'd like to see some human cultural performances. She'd arranged for a theater troupe to visit the station. We agreed, mostly because we were bored, and because watching primitive human entertainment sounded amusing. The show was something called Much Ado About Nothing, which, according to the cultural database, was a comedy written about 600 of their years ago. It was performed in one of the station's smaller halls, with simple props and costumes. It was actually pretty good. The humans had a decent grasp of timing, their verbal wordplay was complex, and the plot about people being tricked into falling in love was universal enough to translate well. We applauded politely at the end. Victoria thanked us for attending and suggested we reconvene negotiations the next morning. That was when things started getting weird. The Muralaki delegation went back to their quarters that night and found their secure database had been accessed. Nothing was deleted. Nothing was changed. But someone had read every file, including their private communications with the Confederacy High Command and their actual negotiating limits. The access logs showed the breach had happened during the theater performance. The Helian delegation discovered similar intrusions. So did the Ythran. So did we. 12 delegations. 12 separate security systems, each designed by different species with different technological approaches. All breached simultaneously while we were watching humans pretend to fall in love on stage. The next morning, Victoria Cross walked into the negotiation hall wearing the same black suit and the same pleasant smile. She set a data pad on the table. "Before we continue," she said, "I thought it might be helpful to share some information, just so we're all working from the same baseline understanding." She activated the pad. A holographic display sprang up, showing trade routes, military deployments, secret treaties, and financial arrangements between the various delegations. Everything we'd been hiding from each other. Everything we'd been trying to hide from the humans. Every backroom deal, every planned double cross, every leverage point we thought we had. It was all there, laid out like a buffet. "You hacked us," Quilax said, his tentacles going rigid with shock. "You infiltrated our systems." "Did we?" Victoria looked genuinely curious. "I don't recall saying that. I'm just sharing publicly available information. This is classified intelligence." Broken Claw's mandibles clattered. "How did you obtain it?" "Through standard intelligence gathering operations," Victoria said. "You know, talking to people, reading things, paying attention. The same methods every species here has been using to gather information on us for the past month. She wasn't wrong. We'd all sent covert operatives to human space. We'd all been analyzing their communications, their ship designs, their social structures. We'd all been building comprehensive threat assessments and exploitation strategies. We just hadn't expected them to do the same thing back to us quite so effectively. "This is an act of espionage," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hardly the action of a species seeking peaceful cooperation." "Is it?" Victoria tilted her head. "Because according to Section 42 of the Galactic Council Charter, which I have read very thoroughly, information security is the responsibility of individual member species. The Council explicitly does not regulate intelligence operations between members, on the grounds that doing so would be impractical and probably impossible. So we haven't actually violated any laws. We've just been thorough." The room went very, very quiet. "Now," Victoria continued, "I think we should restart these negotiations with a clearer understanding of everyone's actual positions. For example, the Corthan Dominion doesn't actually want basing rights in our systems. You want a forward operating position for your planned expansion into the Tethys sector, which the Wythran Collective currently claims. The mining rights are secondary. You're using us as a proxy to challenge Ithran territorial claims without direct confrontation." I felt my scales go cold. That was exactly right. That was classified strategy from the Dominion High Command. "The Ythran Collective," Victoria said, turning to Quillax, "is actually desperate for our agricultural technology. Your food production systems are failing due to a fungal contamination you've been hiding from the other council members. You need our help, but you can't ask directly because it would show weakness. So you've been trying to strong-arm us into a dependency relationship where you can steal the technology through technology-sharing agreements." Quillax's tentacles had gone completely pale. Victoria went around the room. 12 delegations, 12 accurate assessments of actual positions, real needs, and hidden agendas. She laid it all out with the same pleasant professional tone someone might use to discuss weather patterns. When she finished, she folded her hands on the table. "So here's what's going to happen," she said. "We're going to negotiate real agreements, fair ones, based on actual mutual benefit, not exploitation schemes. The Corthan Dominion wants the Tethys sector. We'll support your territorial claim in exchange for actual defensive alliance and technology exchange at market rates. The Ythran Collective needs agricultural support. We'll provide it in exchange for access to your biological research databases and a favorable trade status. Everyone gets something they actually need. Nobody gets to treat us like children who don't understand how the galaxy works." "And if we refuse?" Broken Claw asked. Victoria's smile never wavered. "Then we release all of this information publicly. Every delegation here goes home and explains to their superiors how they got completely outmaneuvered by the primitive humans in the first month of contact. We explain how you tried to exploit us, how you plotted against each other, how your security systems might as well have been made of tissue paper. Your careers end. Your governments face embarrassment. And we negotiate with whoever replaces you, who will probably be more reasonable." She paused. "Or," she said, "we can all act like adults and build something actually useful. Your choice." I looked around the room. Everyone was doing the same math. The humans had just demonstrated they were vastly more competent than we'd assumed. They'd infiltrated all of us. They'd analyzed our positions better than we'd analyzed each other. And they were offering actual deals that, annoying as it was to admit, were probably better than what we'd get from continued scheming. How? I finally asked. How did you manage this? You've barely been in space for 3 generations. Your technology is primitive. Your intelligence services shouldn't be this effective. Victoria's smile finally changed. It got sharper, colder, more honest. Do you know what Earth is? She asked. Really? We didn't answer. Earth is a cage fight that's been running for 4 billion years, Victoria said. Every species on our planet has been trying to kill every other species on our planet since life began. We've been prey. We've been predators. We've been both at the same time. We learned to hunt in packs. We learned to use tools. We learned to lie, to cooperate, to betray, to plan years in advance for a single goal. We spent 10,000 years fighting each other in increasingly creative ways. We built civilizations. We destroyed them. We learned every trick of psychology, strategy, and manipulation that works on beings with complex social structures. She stood up, slowly. You want to know why we're good at this? She asked. Because we've been playing this game since before your species learned to make fire. We didn't become apex predators because we were big or strong. We became apex predators because we're relentless, adaptable, and we never, ever stop learning. You thought you were negotiating with newcomers. You were actually negotiating with the most experienced survivors of the most competitive environment any of you have ever encountered. She gestured to the data still floating above the table. So, yes, we can do this the hard way. We can play the games you're used to playing, except we'll play them better because we invented most of them. Or we can do this the smart way. We can build actual partnerships based on mutual respect and shared interests. We can create something that benefits everyone instead of grinding each other down in pointless competitions. She looked at each of us in turn. What's it going to be? The negotiations took another 2 weeks. Real negotiations this time. The kind where everyone came to the table with honest positions and worked toward actual compromise. It was exhausting. It was frustrating. It was also, probably, the most productive diplomatic session I'd ever participated in. The humans got their trade agreements, fair ones. They got their defensive pacts, reciprocal ones. They got access to galactic markets, technology exchanges, and cultural programs. In exchange, they offered their own technologies, their military support where needed, and their services as neutral mediators in several ongoing disputes. By the time we finished, humanity had gone from unknown newcomers to recognized players in galactic politics. Not major powers yet, but legitimate participants with actual leverage and genuine respect. I went back to my quarters on the last night and found a message waiting. It was from Victoria Cross. Thank you for your professionalism, it read. I hope this is the beginning of a long and productive relationship between our peoples. Also, you should probably update your encryption protocols. The ones you're using are about 60 years out of date by our standards. I'm attaching some suggestions. No charge. Consider it a gesture of goodwill. I opened the attachment. It was a comprehensive analysis of Corthan's security systems with detailed recommendations for improvements. It would take our intelligence services months to produce something this thorough. She'd probably written it during lunch. I sat there for a long time, reading through the document, thinking about everything that had happened. The humans had come to the negotiating table looking soft and harmless. They'd let us make all our usual assumptions. They'd smiled and nodded and asked polite questions while they took us apart like a puzzle box. And they'd done it without firing a shot, without raising their voice, without ever dropping the veneer of perfect diplomatic courtesy. Somewhere in the back of my mind, a thought crystallized. It wasn't comforting. We hadn't been negotiating with the humans. We'd been hunted. Carefully. Methodically. With perfect manners and devastating efficiency. They'd identified their prey, studied its patterns, waited for the perfect moment, and struck with precision that left no room for escape. They'd just done it with handshakes and trade agreements instead of teeth and claws. I pulled up the information I had on human history, the wars, the political movements, the rises and falls of empires, the endless grinding competition between groups with different ideas about how the world should work. Thousands of years of practice at exactly this kind of strategic thinking. Then I pulled up the information on human biology, persistence hunters, endurance predators, species that killed by literally chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Patient, relentless, willing to track a target for days if necessary. I thought about Victoria Cross and her pleasant smile. I thought about how she'd let us talk ourselves into corners before revealing she'd known everything all along. I thought about how she'd offered cooperation while making it crystal clear that the alternative was destruction. I thought about how she'd called it a gesture of goodwill while demonstrating that she could break our security any time she wanted. My scales itched. I sent a priority message to Dominion High Command. Subject line, "Reassess human threat level immediately." The reply came back 6 hours later. They wanted a full report. They wanted analysis. They wanted recommendations. I started writing. 3 pages in, I realized I was going to need a lot more than 3 pages. This wasn't a simple threat assessment. This was a fundamental recalibration of how we understood this new species. Humans didn't negotiate. Not really. They hunted. They just did it with such perfect courtesy that you didn't realize you were prey until the jaws had already closed. And the truly terrifying part? They were offering to be allies instead of enemies. They were extending partnership to species who'd tried to exploit them. They were playing nice even though they clearly didn't have to, which meant either they were genuinely idealistic despite their predatory nature, or they were playing a longer game than any of us had considered. Possibly both. I kept writing. The report grew longer. Dawn came and went. I barely noticed. Somewhere on Earth, Victoria Cross was probably sleeping peacefully, dreaming whatever dreams apex predators dream when they've had a successful hunt. The galaxy had just learned something important. Humanity had arrived, and they were nothing like what we'd expected. 3 months after the treaty signing, I got invited to Earth. Not commanded, not summoned, invited. Victoria Cross sent a personal message suggesting I might enjoy visiting humanity's homeworld as part of a cultural exchange program. She mentioned something about wanting to show me where humans learn to negotiate. The phrasing made my scales itch again, but curiosity won out over self-preservation instincts. Big mistake. Probably. The shuttle descent through Earth's atmosphere was terrifying. Their planet had weather. Real weather. Massive storm systems that could flatten buildings, temperature variations that would kill most species I knew, an oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere that was just corrosive enough to be uncomfortable for anyone with exposed metalwork. And the gravity. Oh, the gravity. 20% higher than Corthan's standard. I felt like I was wearing a weight vest made of lead. "Welcome to Seattle," Victoria said, meeting me at the spaceport. She looked exactly the same as she had at the negotiations. Same black suit, same pleasant smile, same eyes that seemed to see through bulkheads. "How was the flight?" "Educational," I managed. My legs were already aching from the gravity. "Your planet is trying to kill me." "Oh, it tries to kill us too," Victoria said cheerfully. We just got really good at not dying. Come on, I've arranged a tour. The city was chaos. Organized chaos, but still chaos. Humans everywhere, moving with purpose through streets filled with vehicles, buildings that scraped the sky, and enough electromagnetic noise to make my communication implants buzz. The air smelled like pollution, cooking food, and something organic I couldn't identify. Plants, maybe. Earth had those everywhere, just growing wild like nobody had ever explained the concept of controlled cultivation. "First stop," Victoria said, guiding me toward a large building with columns and steps. "The Museum of History. I thought you might appreciate some context." Context! Right. That didn't sound ominous at all. The museum was enormous. Hall after hall of artifacts, displays, and historical records. Victoria led me through sections on early human development, stone tools, fire, cave paintings, agriculture, civilization. "This is where we started," she said, gesturing to a display showing primitive humans with spears. "About 300,000 years ago. No technology except rocks we'd sharpened. No written language. No cities. Just small groups trying to survive on a planet that really, really wanted us dead." The next hall showed warfare. Lots of warfare. Swords, guns, tanks, aircraft, nuclear weapons. Conflict after conflict, nation against nation. Ideology against ideology. The casualty numbers were staggering. Hundreds of millions dead in wars that lasted years or decades. "We fought each other constantly," Victoria said, her voice neutral. "Still do, sometimes. We've gotten better at talking instead of shooting, but the instinct is still there. Competition, tribalism, the need to prove we're stronger, smarter, better than the group next door." "This is horrifying," I said honestly. "Yes," Victoria agreed. "It is. But it's also educational. Every one of these conflicts taught us something. Strategy, logistics, psychology. How to motivate groups. How to break enemy morale. How to gather intelligence. How to lie convincingly. How to build alliances. How to betray them when necessary. We spent 10,000 years learning these lessons in blood." She stopped in front of a display about something called the Cold War. Two massive power blocks, armed with enough nuclear weapons to sterilize the planet, locked in a decades-long struggle, where they never actually fought directly, but maneuvered constantly through proxies, espionage, and brinksmanship. "This one was particularly instructive," Victoria said. "Both sides knew direct conflict would mean mutual destruction, so they fought through every other means available. Spies, propaganda, economic pressure, proxy wars, technological competition. It forced us to get creative, to think in systems, to plan years ahead, to understand that sometimes the threat of force is more useful than actual force." I stared at the display. "You're saying you learned negotiation tactics from preparing to destroy yourselves?" "Partly," Victoria said. "We also learned them from not destroying ourselves, from finding ways to step back from the brink, from building institutions that could manage conflicts without total war, from creating incentives for cooperation, even between enemies." The next section covered space exploration, primitive rockets, moon landings, Mars colonies, slower-than-light exploration, then the discovery of the quantum fold drive that made faster-than-light travel possible, first contact protocols, everything that led to humans meeting the galaxy. "We knew we weren't alone," Victoria said. "We'd been picking up radio signals from other civilizations for decades before we developed FTL. We studied you, all of you. We analyzed your broadcasts, your ship movements, your technological signatures. We built psychological profiles, We made predictions about how first contact would go. You spied on us before we even met, I said. Of course we did, Victoria said. What kind of idiots walk into a room full of strangers without doing reconnaissance first? We needed to know what we were dealing with, whether you were friendly, hostile, or just opportunistic. Turns out you were option 3. We moved to another hall. This one was different, quieter, more recent. It showed the first contact scenario, Earth's perspective on meeting the Galactic Council, the preparations, the debates about how to approach the situation. We had arguments, Victoria said. Some people wanted to be aggressive, show strength, demand respect. Others wanted to be submissive, accept whatever terms we could get, build slowly. Both approaches had merit. What changed the debate? I asked. Victoria smiled. My grandmother. She led me to a portrait. An older human woman with the same dark skin and sharp eyes. The nameplate read, Admiral Rebecca Cross, Earth Defense Force. She pointed out something obvious, Victoria said. Everyone we were about to meet had been playing galactic politics for thousands of years. They knew all the standard moves: aggression, submission, alliance building, betrayal. They'd seen it all. So doing any of those things would just let them categorize us, put us in a box, treat us like every other newcomer species they'd encountered. So you did something unexpected, I said, understanding dawning. We did something completely off the board, Victoria agreed. We walked in looking harmless, let you make assumptions, let you think you were in control. And while you were busy congratulating yourselves on finding new victims, we learned everything about you. Your strengths, your weaknesses, your fears, your desires. By the time you realized we weren't what you thought, we already owned the negotiation. That's terrifying, I said. That's survival, Victoria corrected. You want to know the real secret of humanity? We're not actually that special. We're not smarter than you. We're not stronger. Our technology isn't better. But we're flexible. We adapt. We learn. And we never ever assume we're safe just because things seem calm. She led me out of the museum. The gravity still hurt. The air still smelled wrong. But I was starting to understand something important. We went to lunch at a place Victoria called a restaurant. Small establishment, family-owned, serving something called Thai food that smelled incredible and tasted like concentrated fire. I managed 3 bites before my mouth started burning. Victoria ate hers like it was nothing. Capsaicin, she explained. Chemical compound that triggers pain receptors. We eat it recreationally. Builds character. You eat poison for fun, I pipin, bidretirarsin, said, gulping water. Technically, it's not poison, Victoria said. Just really, really spicy. But yes, we enjoy things that hurt us in controlled amounts. Makes us feel alive. After lunch, we visited something called a dojo, a training facility where humans practiced combat. Not with weapons, with their bare hands. I watched 2 humans, one male and one female, fight each other with devastating efficiency. Throws, locks, strikes. They moved like liquid violence, and when they finished, they bowed to each other respectfully and smiled. We teach our children to fight, Victoria said. Not because we want them to hurt people, because we want them to understand conflict, control, discipline, respect. You can't really understand peace until you understand violence. Can't appreciate cooperation until you've experienced competition. Your entire species is insane, I said. Maybe, Victoria agreed. Or maybe we're just honest about what survival requires. Every species in the galaxy has violence in their past, predation, competition, conflict. Most of you just pretend it's not there anymore. You built civilizations and decided you'd evolved past that. We built civilizations and remembered that the competition never really stops. It just gets more sophisticated. Evening came. Victoria took me to her home, a modest dwelling on the outskirts of the city. Inside, I met her family. Husband, 2 children. They seemed normal, kind. The children asked me questions about my homeworld. What games did Corthan children play? What was our food like? Did we have pets? Normal family. Normal conversation. Normal evening. Except the husband was former military intelligence. Victoria mentioned it casually while serving dinner. He'd spent 20 years infiltrating enemy organizations, gathering secrets, and running covert operations. Now he taught history at a local university and coached youth sports. Like that was a normal career transition. After dinner, Victoria and I sat on her back porch. Earth's sun was setting, painting the sky in colors I didn't have names for. The temperature was dropping. I was getting cold. Victoria offered me a blanket. "Why did you really invite me here?" I asked. Victoria was quiet for a moment. "Because I wanted you to understand something," she said finally. "When we walked into those negotiations, everyone assumed we were prey. Easy targets. Species to be exploited or protected or manipulated. And we let you think that because it was useful." "I know," I said. "You explained this." "No," Victoria said. "You understand the tactic. I wanted you to understand the why. Humans aren't trying to conquer the galaxy. We're not interested in building an empire. We've tried that on Earth, multiple times. It always ends badly. Empires collapse. Conquest creates resistance. Domination breeds resentment." She turned to look at me directly. "What we want is partnership," she said. "Real partnership. Where everyone contributes. Where everyone benefits. Where we can share knowledge and resources and build something better than any single species could manage alone. But we can't do that if everyone sees us as victims or threats. We needed to establish respect first. Show that we can't be pushed around, can't be manipulated, can't be underestimated." "So you hunted us," I said. "So we defended ourselves," Victoria corrected, "with overwhelming competence. Now everyone knows we're dangerous, capable, not to be trifled with. And that means we can actually build the partnerships we want. Because you'll take us seriously." I thought about that. About the museum, the training, the history of violence and competition. The careful balance between aggression and cooperation that humanity seemed to maintain. "You're still predators," I said. "Always," Victoria agreed. "But predators can choose their prey, can choose when to hunt and when to rest, can choose cooperation over competition when it serves everyone better. We just needed to make sure everyone understood that cooperation was a choice we were making, not a weakness you could exploit." The sun finished setting. Earth's night sky appeared, full of stars. So many stars. Some of them were systems I'd visited. Some were claimed by the Dominion. Some by other council members. Some were unclaimed, waiting for whoever got there first. "There's enough out there for everyone," Victoria said quietly. "Enough resources. Enough space. Enough possibilities. We don't have to fight over scraps. We can explore together. Build together. Learn together. That's what humanity wants. A galaxy where everyone rises together instead of climbing over each other." "That's idealistic," I said. "That's practical," Victoria countered. "Competition wastes resources. Conflict destroys value. Cooperation multiplies benefits. It's basic mathematics. The only reason species fight is because they assume resources are limited and zero-sum. But we're talking about a galaxy. There's nothing zero-sum about that much space. She stood up, stretching. Besides, humans tried the alternative. We spent most of our history fighting each other over limited resources on one planet. It nearly killed us multiple times. We learned. Either we cooperate and thrive, or we compete and die. We'd rather thrive. I left Earth the next day. The gravity was still oppressive. The air still smelled wrong. The weather was still trying to kill me. But I understood something I hadn't before. Humans weren't just predators. They were predators who'd survived by learning when not to hunt, who'd thrived by figuring out that cooperation could be more valuable than competition, who'd built a civilization by balancing violence and peace, aggression and diplomacy, individual strength and collective benefit. They were terrifying, but they might also be exactly what the galaxy needed. Back on the Corthan homeworld, I filed my report. Then I filed a second report, marked for the Dominion leadership only. In it, I made a recommendation that probably ended my career in expansion operations. Stop trying to exploit humanity. Start trying to actually partner with them. The response came back 3 days later. I was being reassigned. New position. Human Liaison Office. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who'd reached this conclusion. Other species were doing the same math. Humanity had proven they couldn't be pushed around. Now everyone was trying to figure out how to work with them instead of against them, which was probably what Victoria Cross had planned all along. 6 months later, I attended another council meeting. This time, humanity had a permanent seat, full voting rights, equal status with every other member species. They'd gone from unknown newcomers to recognized power in less than a year. Victoria Cross was there, naturally, still wearing the same black suit, still smiling. She caught my eye across the chamber and nodded slightly. Acknowledgement, respect, maybe even friendship, in whatever form that took between species who'd started as predator and prey and ended as colleagues. The meeting began. Agenda items scrolled past. Trade disputes, territorial negotiations, defense coordination, standard galactic politics. Humans participated like they'd been doing this for centuries, offering suggestions, mediating conflicts, building coalitions, playing the game with the same competence they'd shown in those first negotiations. Halfway through, a new item appeared. First contact situation. A species called the Vrin had just achieved FTL. They were reaching out. The council needed to decide how to approach them. Everyone started talking at once. Proposals, strategies. Who should make contact? What terms should be offered? The same calculations we'd made with humanity. Except this time, humans were part of the discussion. Victoria raised her hand. The chamber quieted. "I have a suggestion," she said. "Let's not try to exploit them. Let's offer genuine partnership. Share technology. Provide guidance. Help them integrate into the galactic community as equals rather than subjects. Novel concept, I know, but it might work out better for everyone." There was silence. Then, slowly, agreements. The Yuthrin representative signaled approval. The Moraliki delegate clicked affirmation. One by one, the council members accepted the proposal. We were learning, slowly, painfully, but learning. The meeting continued. More agenda items, more discussions, more decisions made through cooperation rather than exploitation. It wasn't perfect. There were still disagreements, still conflicts, still species looking for advantages. But something had shifted. Some fundamental assumption about how galactic politics worked had changed. Humans had done that. By being competent enough to demand respect. By being idealistic enough to offer cooperation. By being flexible enough to adapt their approach to whatever situation they encountered. They'd walked into the galaxy and changed the EE rules simply by refusing to play by the old ones. After the meeting, I found Victoria in one of the station's observation decks. She was staring out at the stars, holding a cup of something that smelled like burnt earth. Coffee, probably. Humans consumed it constantly. "You're doing it again," I said. "Doing what?" she asked. "Hunting. Except this time, you're hunting better outcomes instead of prey. Stalking cooperation instead of victims. Using the same skills, but applying them differently." Victoria smiled. That same sharp, honest smile she'd worn when revealing she'd hacked all our systems. "Maybe," she said, "or maybe we just learned that there are different kinds of success, different kinds of victory. Conquering the galaxy sounds impressive until you realize you'd spend centuries managing rebellions and maintaining control. Partnership sounds boring until you realize it means everyone works together to solve problems instead of creating them." "Your grandmother taught you that?" I asked. "My grandmother taught me to think strategically," Victoria said. "To plan ahead. To understand that short-term victories can create long-term problems. She also taught me that the best way to win is to change the game, so everyone benefits from you winning." She finished her coffee. "The galaxy is big," she said, "full of possibilities. We can spend the next 1,000 years fighting over pieces of it. Or we can spend that time exploring it together. Building things. Learning things. Creating something none of us could manage alone. Humans prefer the second option. We're working to convince everyone else to prefer it too." "And if that doesn't work?" I asked. Victoria's smile got sharper. "Then we're very, very good at the first option too. But let's hope it doesn't come to that." She left me there, staring at the stars, thinking about predators and prey, about cooperation and competition, about species that hunted with manners and turned negotiation into art form. Somewhere out there, the Vryn were preparing for first contact. They'd meet the Council soon. They'd get the same offer humanity had received. Partnership instead of exploitation. Cooperation instead of domination. Because humanity had taught the galaxy a new lesson. Not through force, not through conquest, but through being competent enough to demand respect and idealistic enough to offer something better. They'd hunted us, all of us, carefully, methodically, with perfect manners and devastating efficiency. And then they'd offered us a hand up instead of finishing the kill. That's what made them truly terrifying. Not their competence, not their intelligence, not their adaptability. The fact that they could destroy you, but chose to help you instead. The galaxy was learning. We had teachers now. Small, soft, impossibly dangerous teachers who smiled while they changed everything. I went back to my quarters, filed another report. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I enrolled in human, diplomatic training. If the galaxy was changing, I wanted to understand how. Wanted to learn from the species who'd walked in looking like prey and walked out looking like partners. Wanted to learn how to hunt with manners. The galaxy had learned the truth. She doesn't negotiate. She hunts. But she hunts for better futures instead of victims. And maybe that makes all the difference.